Like I explained to the psychiatric department of complaints, I have the idea. I think I made a video, but seems apparently I didn't. Uh, since psychiatry is not a somatic treatment of illnesses, which makes it not a medical science. Well, it is medication, but it's not a science about the body, and because it's not somehow. Well, it is situated in the brain. Of course, they know that. Then they also know, if they're not retarded, that what is situated in the brain, that is a problem, which is not a brain tumor or epilepsy or narcolepsy or something like that. It is psychology. When you cannot find it in the brain, it's not to. You cannot situate. You cannot take a blood sample and diagnose, saying, well, it's called K5 or something like that, and that's that diagnosis, and there's D11 or what. That the numbers are a bit low. They can pretend to, but that would be stupid since we know it's not the case. Well, then there's the brain. You can scan the brain. You cannot find any illnesses there. Then it's all perception, the doctor's perception. And what is perception? Well, that's the sum of former experiences, which we know according to neuroscience, and the values, the religious beliefs, and everything, the sum of what makes up that person, which is also situated in the brain. So one brain is to analyze another brain from what is being said, or how the person looks, but it's what it really is what is being said, and what is the well, it's what is being said, because that's all it's about psychiatry, because that's the diagnostic criteria. It has to do with what is being said and how does the so-called patient perceive life, and how is it being processed in the brain. Does the patient have visual or auditive hallucinations, which is called psychosis or schizophrenia, sometimes borderline. Is the patient very talkative and very acting out, and not able to sit down and rest, and overactive? Then it's a manic disorder that's often combined with depression, which is called bipolar disorder. But you cannot find it, so you cannot show it on a scan, or when you make an X-ray, or you cannot take a blood sample or something else, which is why it's not somatic. But then the doctor can have views that if the doctor does not, well, there's a lot of room for corruption in that system, because if the doctor says this and that, there's some authority to it. You believe the doctor is sane, not a psychopath. You believe, well, I don't believe that, but most people, as in you, like everyone believes, unless you have a lot of bad experiences, or I don't know, the doctor's not allowed to practice medicine. But then there's a lot of people believe it, and then sometimes you believe in things that you can clearly see are not true. If a doctor says, well, the person is sick, mentally ill, then people have a tendency to believe it, even though they don't take the time to listen to what does the person say, because a doctor put a stigma on the person, which is because then it's very difficult to be taken seriously in any situation. So there can be things wrong with the perception. It's also a problem if doctors do not understand or speak proper whatever language. Or if the doctor is a psychopath, if the doctor has not looked into the diagnostic criteria, if the doctor comes from a society where it's a police state, where it's normal to, for some political reasons, to suppress people, and so on and so forth. They try to normalize it in Denmark. It is not. We do not live in a society where it's normal to have a police state or a military state, and for the prime minister to lay down and rest and have sweet talk on the profile about how cute she looks when she's lying there resting, ready to rub cunt and get it off the cunt, just relaxing and not caring about anything. It's very sick. That's the real illness. That's the illness that it has polluted Denmark. That she's so lazy and so incompetent that it's a disgrace. Then the idea is that I talk to the Department of Complaints, psychiatric Department of Complaints, is to make a neuropsychological department so that you can be scanned and see, is there something in the brain, a tumor, something that causes the symptoms, epilepsy or something like that. Or if not, then okay, then at the same time, in the same part of the procedure of how things function, they take a blood sample and measure they check the heart and measure all kinds of things you measure when you make a health check at the doctor. And then not a prison like a hospital, because it's outdated. If you imagine you see it from the future, then they will shake their heads thinking, was witch hunt not over? Why did they put people in prison who had not done anything wrong? Did they think it would help people? Why did they tie them up? Why did they attack them? Why did they put medication in them? How could they be so stupid not to see that it's psychology, that it's something that might have to do with what's the stress hormones, that I don't remember what it's called, the stress hormones, which you can also measure, and an accumulation of trauma. That I think there are different levels of when you have this much trauma. Well, it will manifest as stress, and then stress turns into depression, turns into bipolar disorder, turns into psychosis, turns into schizophrenia, turns into borderline, which is the worst diagnosis because it's every diagnosis. At the same time, and it's not treatable, which is the benefit that the borderline patients have. That they give them medication nowadays, even though it's not been the case early on. Early on, it was the smallest dose of medication for therapy to be possible. That they have put that into another context in psychiatry and moved it to the I don't remember which context in psychiatry. Moved it somewhere else, like they have a tendency to do also historically, with what different things. They change meaning of words or move something from one context to the other, like the crown, or you can have a crown as a royalty, or you can have a crown of thorns, like Jesus, or you can have the halo, and then you have this that the priest is wearing to, I think, to suppress the bodily, the sexual drive as a priest. And that maybe it's the halo that's been moved to the neck, and so on. So, and then it not a prison like hospital, but recommendations from the doctor, because there has to be a doctor, a psychotherapist, or someone who started psychology, or different types of therapies, also physiotherapy, and breathing exercise. Someone knows about that, and then the doctor and the neuroscientist, because that's covers it all. Then, okay, the team could say it's a good idea to be at the hospital to get some rest, and maybe for some observation, or for whatever reason, through communication, which is possible. And then the patient, because unless the patient stabs someone or something like that, then they do not belong in that hospital. Then they belong somewhere else, in some kind of institution, temporarily. And then which is also, I think, to be changed to less prison-like, and more progression, not stagnation. And then, because if they can treat, well, if it's because of an illness, then it's bad treatment by doctors that caused the crime. If they can treat, it cannot take 10, 20 years to treat an illness for the patient to get back into society. And then if the patient didn't hurt anyone, or try to commit suicide, because if the patient tried to commit suicide, then you need to treat that, and that's in the hospital. So that's the reason for being hospitalized. And then, or if the patient talked about killing him or herself, then it's a recommendation, and then the patient might say, well, I'm not going to. Okay, that's fine. And then, but if the patient might go back home and regret it, and because that's more likely if it's a recommendation than if it's through force, because it stigmatizes people. It makes it impossible for people to have a normal life, because other people, it creates some negative attention around people's lives. They do not even understand if what they say makes sense. They will try to, as I have experienced, create a lot of shit around a person's life which is not the person's fault, but which is a way to destroy people's lives, that the police is not even paying attention to where they are. They know about it, but they join it, which is even more horrible. And then they make a plan for the least possible, or the smallest amount of medication, if medication is needed. It's not going to be like nowadays. You cannot enter a psychiatric department without them wanting to stuff medication in you. It has to be a possibility, because you do not walk into a cancer department and then, if you do not have cancer, would they decide to remove your leg because they think that it sounds like cancer? They don't want to make an x-ray. Just sounds like it. That's the doctor's perception. That's not the way to do it. That is an indication of incompetence. And then the plan might be to go to the gym with a physiotherapist, some breathing exercises, maybe someone who knows about healthy food and therapy, a psychotherapist or someone who studies psychology, for a period of time, and because not only if, but because it is psychology, and it is to be treated somehow. Medication is not a cure. It's like when you put something like this on a finger. Well, this is going to heal, but if it didn't heal, if it just kept being like this, and but I knew there was a cure somewhere. But the doctor said, well, they just keep, if I went to the doctor, they'd just keep scratching it and opening it for it never to heal. And then stuff a painkiller in me. That's the same. That's just as stupid and retarded.